Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. The summer break is over, it is race week once again, and the Belgian Grand Prix is looking to be one of the best of the season so far for many reasons, but mainly because some of the top teams might well be looking to take engine penalties and targeting this race as the one to do it. Ferrari certainly are looking at this, Red Bull may well as well. Could this open the door for Mercedes to finally win a Grand Prix this season, or will they decide to follow suit with their rivals? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Let's crack straight on with things. Another big piece of news today. Antonio Giovinazzi, of course, former F1 driver, currently a Ferrari reserve driver, I believe. He's going to be participating in the FP1 sessions for Haas for both the Italian Grand Prix in Monza in about 3 weeks' time and the US Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas. This is quite something because, of course, Giovinazzi is not a rookie driver. The rules now mandate that every team must have 2 sessions per season with a rookie driver. We saw, for example, with Mercedes, De Vries took Hamilton's spot in a session back in the French Grand Prix, and we've seen it with other teams as well that have done it so far. They've got to both drivers have to be replaced in 1 session per season by a rookie driver. Allowing Giovinazzi to drive doesn't even meet those targets. They will still need to find another time for a rookie driver to come into the seat instead. So why exactly are they doing this? There were rumours before Magnussen was signed as their driver alongside Mick Schumacher when the whole Mazepin thing went down that Giovinazzi was going to be there instead. So that is the thing. Could Giovinazzi be returning to the team alongside Magnussen next season? That is a serious question mark. Apparently Ferrari have effectively requested this as their reserve driver. They want to get him some time in the car, but it's interesting really that Haas have gone along with it just because they do have their own autonomy to a certain extent to what they do. I think what they're doing personally is putting the pressure on Mick Schumacher. They're not necessarily so happy with him, despite the fact that it seems like he has turned a corner, and replacing Schumacher maybe with Giovinazzi in these sessions is quite the statement of intent really, especially because they've still got to find other time to do actual rookie sessions with rookie drivers elsewhere. So it's quite the surprise. It's rare to see something like this most certainly, and apparently this is the case, that Haas effectively want to push Schumacher into actually delivering more goods. As he says right here, they effectively don't want to give him a new contract unless he earns more points. Steiner has said, look, deliver more points, we'll give you a new deal. If not, Giovinazzi could be the guy, and apparently that is going to be the case. If Haas does get rid of Mick Schumacher, Giovinazzi will come through. Now, the thing is for Schumacher, he might actually have an upgrade on the cards because there is, of course, the Alpine seat open. I think most people would expect Riccardo from McLaren to go to that seat, with Piastri taking his place at McLaren. That is at least what it seems like. But some have said that I think maybe some of the people at Alpine, half of them want Riccardo, and well, at least the people who actually make the decisions. One of the guys wants Riccardo, one of the guys wants Schumacher. That's kind of between the team principal and then the CEO of Renault. So they're kind of split on what to do there. So Schumacher may get a bit of an upgrade here next season. We shall see, I suppose. But yeah, I'm not really sure Giovinazzi's the guy to go for if Schumacher was to leave. I don't really see Haas's kind of ambition in that sense if they were to go down this route, but it's interesting nonetheless. Let's talk about the Belgian Grand Prix, of course, at Spa. And this is Eau Rouge, so a new runoff area they've actually created here, which I do think is actually a lot better than it used to be, because, I mean, look, this is where you're coming up Eau Rouge here, and then you got Radion, of course, and Eau Rouge really isn't a corner anymore, because I was watching some video about it, and that Eau Rouge actually refers to the fact that this track used to turn left here and go off over a river, and that was the bit that was called Eau Rouge. This corner is technically Radion, which basically just means going up a hill or something. But look, there has been some instances, of course, here in the past. These runoff areas on the left-hand side haven't always been great. So they are extending these, so the corner is maybe slightly less scary to drive now and does allow a little bit more room for maneuver, because it can be a dangerous one. We've certainly seen that in the past. So yes, the runoff area, I believe, on this left-hand side is now much more generous. I think the previous one, as you guys can see here, was pretty, I mean, yeah, you can't quite see that, but you guys know what I mean. Yeah, the top, it's pretty tight, honestly, between this barrier and the track itself. Now they do seem to be extending that somewhat, so there is a little bit more room for maneuver here, which seems to me like a good idea all around. Some other kind of updates here to the asphalt and stuff, and there was even mention the fact that the new stones on the asphalt might be somewhat sharp and could potentially cause damage to the tyres, and maybe we get some tyre blowouts this season. I guess stay tuned for that one, but it's going to be an exciting Grand Prix for many reasons. Hopefully it actually is a proper race, unlike last year, because the weather forecast is still suggesting, as it presently stands, there is some reasonable chance of rain this weekend. Like, you don't mind rain around Spa, makes things interesting, but hopefully not got what we had last year, of course. Now, speaking of Spa, one of the things that makes this incredibly exciting is the possibility of engine penalties coming along. For Ferrari, almost certainly, but Red Bull also have said that this is potentially the Grand Prix they will look to target. Now, they might decide to take the penalties in Monza instead. That's a possibility also, but they will take an engine penalty, it seems, Red Bull, either in Spa or in Monza. Mercedes, we don't really know their plans. We do know, though, that they will have to take another engine, it seems, at some point. The teams can't survive on 3 engines this season. That's just like incredibly difficult to manage, even though I'm pretty sure Red Bull made that happen last year, at least with Verstappen's car. But this year, most teams will have to take an extra one, and apparently the top guys are looking potentially for this track. And if Red Bull and Ferrari decide to do it, then it could open the door for Mercedes potentially, right? So let's look at what this article has to say. Very interesting, actually, a few things. First of all, they're doing a new ERS system, which pretty much will mean an entirely new engine components they will have to take. If that's the case, especially for Leclerc, you can very well see a world here where he starts at the back of the grid. And for Ferrari, I think it's relatively clear that this is probably the weekend to take the penalties. Yes, the deficit in the championship is already immense, but the thing is, there's 3 races on a row, right? And you want to make sure you're taking some new parts during those 3 races. You don't want to do it at Zandvoort because starting further back in the Netherlands is more of a death sentence to your kind of final placement than it is round Spa. And they certainly don't want to do it at Monza because it's their home Grand Prix, right? They want to make sure they're starting as far forward at Monza. So I think honestly it makes I'd be very surprised if they don't take the penalties they are expected to take here in Spa. Maybe it's just for Leclerc, maybe it's both of them, or who knows, right? But I think that honestly they will probably take something this weekend. That leaves the opportunity then for Red Bull. What do they decide to do? Do they go down a similar route and also take penalties? Because to a certain extent there's a race against time to introduce these elements. Of course, Max Verstappen and Red Bull aren't going to want to take a penalty at Zandvoort, which is Max Verstappen's home Grand Prix. So they're going to want to start there at the front if they possibly can. So for a couple of different reasons. So there's also a very good chance they also do it here, right? Introduce a 4th power unit into the mix effectively, and then they can work with that with the other ones that they've got, the other components, until the end of the season. So that definitely creates an interesting possibility. Even as Giuliano De Kesa mentions here in the article, we could see the grid effectively inverted almost, right? With a lot of the top teams deciding to go to the back and take their penalties in Spa, because we know it's very much easier to pass this year than it has been previously, and Spa is one of the best circuits to do exactly that. So there's many good reasons why this could be a good weekend to take these penalties. And of course, the other fact of the matter is here that Mercedes might feel like this is their best chance. I mean, look, at the end of the day, they want to get a victory. They're targeting a victory out of the 9 races from now to the end of the season. And Red Bull might think, well, look, maybe we just don't take our penalties here. Ferrari probably will. And then, Red Bull are going to win this race. They can lock up good points, then maybe take their penalties in Monza when Ferrari are back on top, for example, with Red Bull having that greater straight line speed advantage to get through the field. But at the same time, around Monza, the potential of DRS trains could be there. It's kind of difficult to pass in certain corners. So maybe Red Bull also feel like taking the penalties here makes sense. And if that's the case, then what do Mercedes think? Because their car isn't that good in a straight line. So maybe they're thinking, well, do we really want to take the penalties in Monza? Maybe not. Maybe Mercedes take another penalty here as well. Difficult to say. But I think it's an interesting observation that Mercedes might have. They're like, look, well, if Ferrari are taking penalties and maybe Red Bull are, then maybe it's worth us just holding off and, try to start at the front row and actually try and convert a race victory route, which would, of course, be good for Mercedes if those guys are quite a way back. It's an interesting question. Of course, who knows if Mercedes on pure performance could be there this weekend anyway. We know that the big question is how low a ride height can these cars actually run, especially around a corner like Pouhon, which is the one where Hamilton took flat in the W11 right back in 2020. It's you're going downhill, you turn left, it's a 7th gear corner. It's honestly, it's a fabulous corner when you get it right, but it's a pretty scary corner to drive, I'm sure, for these guys, especially in these cars. If they were still bouncing, I'm sure they wouldn't have a great time, and maybe they will be depending on the conditions and stuff like that. But of course, we know the new technical directive is coming into play that prevents the flexi floors that Red Bull are rumoured to be using, and potentially Ferrari. Rumour has it that means that without the flexi floor, they have to raise the ride height of their car to some degree, which then reduces the amount of downforce they can generate with the ground effect, which might mean that they have to then compromise with effectively more downforce on the wings of the car, which slows them down in a straight line. That's a possibility, but far from guaranteed. And even it was mentioned in pretty much the final sector of the track that I'll show for you guys here in a second at Stavlo, that in that stretch of high-speed corners, it's essential to travel low to the ground. You will see who will continue to show the most efficient bottom, the most efficient floor of the car, despite the new TD. So we shall see in that kind of sector, those kind of fast sweeping corners, how efficiently these teams have dealt with the new technical directive, and if Mercedes penalties really are back in business. But some people suggest that actually it's going to be rather similar lap times here to what we have seen before. And this is the key sector, right? They're talking about through corner 15, 16, 17, like, you know, these corners here really, 13, you know, Campus, Stavlo, these are the corners where it's pretty crucial to be low to the ground. So we'll see if that affects any teams. Mercedes might be back here on pure merit. They'll certainly be hoping they will. But if the other teams take penalties, maybe they will say, look, let's just try and lock up a race victory. And we've seen this rumored for quite some time that Ferrari will take a grid penalty in Spa, or at least one of them, because of the new ERS system they're bringing in. Could be very powerful, but of course would affect them at this particular race. And even Helmut Marko, this is a quote from a while ago, but he did say that they will take engine penalties at some point, Spa or Monza. Like, you know, which is more likely, who knows? But we've I think heard that Mercedes will do it. We don't exactly know when that might happen for Mercedes, but it does potentially seem like Leclerc's run of having very few pole positions recently might well continue. After 5 rounds, he had 4 podiums, or not pole positions, so, but, you know, podiums is what I meant to say. After 13 rounds, he's got 5 podiums, so pretty tough scenes. It might still be 5 podiums after 14 rounds if these penalties come to fruition as expected. And just to mention this as well, going into the weekend, of course, last year, you know, it wasn't really a proper race, but Verstappen technically won. It's actually very rare to have a double repeat winner around Spa. Raikkonen technically did it, but there was a missing season in 2006. Outside, I think there was like some sort of upgrades with the track or something. Outside of that, there's never really been a repeat winner. Hamilton's won it 4 times. Raikkonen's won it a fair bit as well, as has Sebastian Vettel. But I mean, yeah, there's been no back-to-back Belgian Grand Prix wins since all the way back in 2007. Can Verstappen repeat the trick this year? Probably not if he starts from the back of the grid. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.